This time on Poll Hub, we're heading outside to look in. We spent a lot of time analyzing what Americans think about all sorts of things, but today we're looking at how the rest of the world perceives us, America in the second Trump regime. What is going on overseas? Then, something a bit different. The guys are gathering to talk about their barbers, because barbershops are about way more than cutting hair. In fact, they're a great place to find out what people are thinking, which is just like when we poll. So there's a lot of synergy there. Anyway, we finished with a not fun fact. Every year about this time, we have to say goodbye to one of our longtime student producers and co-hosts who are all grown up. And this time it's Neel. He's ready to start adulting. Hey man, it's your turn. And hi everybody, welcome to Poll Hub. I'm JD Dapper.
I'm Barbara Carvalho.
I'm Mary Griffith.
I'm Hunter Petro. I'm Tommy Rogers.
I'm Cassidy Connors.
I'm Lee Maringoff. Yeah,
For the last time, I'm Neel Viswanathan.
So for centuries, America was seen as the promised land, a land of hope and opportunity, where the streets were paved with gold. America was often seen as the ideal place for asylum seekers, no matter what they were fleeing. The days of this external American exceptionalism, however, may be gone. There's been a strong recent downturn in the way that the world views America, and even more so, her leadership. Global favorability of the U.S. is declining. According to a 100-country survey by Reuters in April 2025, 45% of countries hold a positive image of the U.S., down from 76% last year. According to Ipsos in April 2025, only 46% of citizens across 29 nations surveyed believe that the U.S. will have a positive influence on world affairs. This is down from 59% in September and October of 2024. The nation where American favorability has declined the most is Canada. 19% of Canadians saw the U.S. as a positive influencer, which is down from 33% from only 6 months prior. Further, according to Ipsos, 52% of global citizens identified America as a threat to global democracy. This is a higher percentage than both China and Russia. So I'm going to throw this over to you, Jay. In all of your years as a political journalist and now working at the Poll, have you seen anything like this happen before where the whole world kind of shifts their opinion of America?
I mean, there have been shifts over time. And so 9/11 is one of these markers where the world rallied, especially most of the Western world and many countries in the world rallied around the U.S. Vietnam is a time, many years before that, when the world split from the U.S. A lot of opinion in the world split from the U.S. So there has been an ebb and flow. I just don't think there's ever been anything quite like this where 52% of the people in the world think China and Russia are a less of a threat to global democracy than the U.S. That was not what people were feeling when they didn't like the U.S., didn't like what the U.S. was doing in the Vietnam War. And it's not like in the first Trump term when there was also a decline in the standing of the opinion of the U.S. among, the global populations. It wasn't like that. This is somewhat unprecedented that we are seeing that really not the first democracy in the world. I mean, Greece beat us there by 2,000 years, but the first modern democracy in the world. And as like you said, the country that's kind of that shining light or have been for 200 years is now seen as a greater threat to democracy in the world than Russia or China is staggering to me. I never would have imagined that in my lifetime.
Yeah, I think it's interesting too how much of this downturn is due to mainly disapproval of American leadership, which most commonly is President Trump. According to Pew in June 2025, in a 24-country survey, 62% of global citizens noted no confidence in President Trump to do the right thing regarding world affairs. Only 34% expressed confidence within him. This stat specifically, however, is not unprecedented, though, as there were times when George W. Bush and Trump in his first term pulled lower in each of these countries than Trump is currently. And so I guess for you, Hunter, you travel a lot, obviously. You've seen a lot of different global perspectives on America. What do you hear people from other countries kind of saying about America?
It's really interesting because, like you said, I travel a lot. I did my first year of college abroad in Ireland, and I've gotten to see how these perspectives differ country by country, person by person even, and the news access over there is different, all of that. But what's most interesting is you'll walk into a bar, you'll walk into a restaurant, you'll walk into a store even, like a supermarket out there, and people, they know you're American or they hear your accent, they find out you're American, and their first question, at least most recently, as of January 2025, it's Trump question, like it's Trump question mark. Do you like Trump? Is Trump a good president? It's never like a full formal question, and they will always break through a language barrier to ask it. And it always turns into a conversation. And I always try and maintain a very middle ground. I always love to hear what they have to say about him, what they're hearing about our politics in our country, all of that. And it's always so different. When I was in Turkey, a lot of people were a fan. A lot of people liked what was going on. They liked seeing it. But when I was over in South Korea or when I was up in Denmark, you'd have people who, if you mentioned that you were a fan, it would be a long conversation on why. One more thing, I know I'm rambling. When I was in South Korea most recently, we were there during their election season. And as you guys know, there's a lot going on with the South Korean presidential elections, the impeachment, everything like that. What I found most interesting was the two parties candidates that were running, the liberal candidate and the conservative candidate. They had Trump Make America Great Again, Make Korea Great Again hats. They had Trump pins, all red, all of that, all in Korean. And it was super interesting to me to see the way that conservatives were still using that message country by country. And it's sort of spreading.
Yeah, I think it's actually interesting that when I've traveled over the years, we were in a couple of different countries at the time that Trump was running and then took office. And we were surprised by how many people who you would think they were like really happy to have an American there, but you would think from what he had already talked about in terms of foreign countries and places that they wouldn't necessarily be fans. And there were a lot of fans. I mean, a lot of the places we went, there were a lot of fans. So I think that, Neel, one of the things about these worldwide surveys is like the 100-country survey. There is a lot of variation across countries. But when you even that out and you say just what's the global view of America, whether people like the person, Trump, or not, I do think that's split from what America has. One of the things that happened when Obama was the president, there was a great groundswell of support for America again in 2008. And there was a lot of news coverage of this, of the places he went and what he did and how popular he was overseas. His ratings overseas were often, for most of his presidency, much higher than in the United States. And that flipped, obviously, when Trump came in. It kind of flipped back a little bit with Biden. It's flipped back with Trump. But at the end of the day, I wonder if you drew a line that took the person out and just said, what do you think of America? And you could ask the question in a way, don't talk to me about it. Don't think about the president. What do you think of America and Americans? I think there might be a much more stable line there. I don't know that for sure, but I kind of get that feeling. Hunter, it's a little bit what you talked about. Like in most countries, people aren't like, oh, you're an American, Trump. They're like, you're an American. What about this Trump? It's not about you. It's not about you as an American. It's about the person who we've elected president in most cases.
Yeah, I think it's interesting how in America we have the difference between patriotism and political support. But in other countries, obviously they don't live in America. They don't experience American culture the same way we do. They don't really make that distinction as much because they're just not as embedded in the culture. So they associate America with Trump. And I think that's why they're so interested in that. Like, I'm not as well traveled as either one of you guys, but I did go to Vietnam this summer.
You'll get there.
That's the goal. I experienced the same thing. People always ask me if I said I was from America. People that barely spoke English. Oh, do you like Trump? Do you like Trump? And I think it's just hard for people in other countries to kind of differentiate political party from country the same way that we do.
I find it really interesting because I will say some message that's always been pretty consistent from anybody I've talked to in all of these countries over the world is that America is still the dream. It's still the dream for these people, whether they like Trump or they don't like Trump, they see America as the dream. And I think maybe we, as people who were born and raised in America, are ignorant to this fact that, you know, people are still itching to get to America, to get that chance in this place. Jay, when you mentioned that you take politics out of it, there's probably one fine line that's a pretty straightforward response. I would say everybody's been pretty similar that while politics here can be up and down and you could have an opinion on Trump, it's the place to be if you want to get your dreams achieved.
Going along with that, I'm going to bring China back into this. So with Trump always talking about China, he's going to be tough on China with his tariffs and his anti-CCP rhetoric. Is the U.S. being surpassed by China globally? Well, according to the 100-country survey by Reuters in April 2025, Trump was viewed negatively by 82 of these countries, a higher number than both Vladimir Putin and Xi Jinping, who were viewed negatively in 61 and 44 countries, respectively. On a negative 100% to plus 100% net perception scale, the United States fell to negative 5%, down 27 points from plus 22% last year. This is lower than China, whose net perception now sits at plus 14%, up 9 points from last year. So I want to ask you guys, how much of this do you think might be due to recent U.S.-China relations with tariffs and things like that? Do you think that's the largest part of this, or is the world really just that anti-Trump personality?
I think it's interesting. China is clearly in the position, the first time in, our lifetimes, and certainly I really think in the century that ended with World War I, this is the first time that a country globally has been in a position to surpass the U.S. in terms of being the global superpower. Through economics or military, however you want to define that, this is the first real challenge that has existed. And I think the goal of the Chinese government, or at least the Chinese leader at this point, is to do that, for China to become the superpower of the 21st century. And so in some ways, they've used the soft power that we used to use, and did use until fairly recently here in America, of lots of investment abroad, of lots of money given to poorer countries to help health and famine and things like that. They've used that soft power everywhere in the world. It hasn't worked everywhere. There's lots of problems. This is not some perfect case of China, playing the card around the world and coming out on top. But they have been doing what we used to do and what we have now abandoned doing. And I think that accounts at least for some of these numbers, especially in some European countries and middle-income countries where China is seen more positively than the United States. I think that a lot of that has to do with the fact that China seems to be reaching out and we're not. The U.S. is no longer reaching out. The walls are up, the doors are closed. Stay out, stay away. But I think Hunter's point is well taken. It's like, I don't see anything about the Chinese government, trying to block the borders from all the huge numbers of immigrants trying to get into China. Nobody's trying to get into China. They're still trying to get in here. So again, I think policies and people change. But when it comes to our position vis-a-vis China, I do think that it's a longer term thing, right? It's 50 or 100 years that you have to look at this. And right now, it looks like China is very ascendant and we are not. By the time you guys are my age, this discussion, you may laugh at this. This may be a punchline to a joke, or you could be speaking Mandarin. Who knows?
I think also now reflecting, it's kind of interesting how I said earlier that a lot of people in other countries can't disassociate American patriotism or American support from support for Trump and political party support. I think that's kind of why all these China statistics are kind of surprising to us, because we almost can't do the same thing with China. So we don't have the same view as a lot of these other middle income countries that are rating China pretty highly. We don't really see it that way. We see it as the way it's painted in the media. We hear about things like tariffs and overseas manufacturing and Uyghur Muslim camps, and we paint that as, support for China or optimism for China, kind of the same way that foreigners to the U.S. think of all the stuff that Donald Trump is doing as support for America.
But, at the same time, I just would say that Americans have traditionally not really cared about foreign policy as much as domestic, and not really cared what the rest of the world thinks about us. And I don't know if you've seen that, Hunter, in traveling. Part of that is that they like Americans fine, but if you see other Americans abroad, they may not be exactly like you are when they're traveling. And I mean, I've certainly seen lots of not pretty American attitudes in foreign countries where there are definitely Americans who travel who are like, oh, sure, I'm in XYZ country. I'm not really going to try and speak the language, and where's the McDonald's? And I know that's stereotypical, but I've seen it. I've been in 35, 40 countries. I've seen it in almost every country I've ever been in.
I will say, in a more lighthearted joke, I do understand where those people come from sometimes, as I have been to McDonald's in all of the 40 countries that I've been to. I've just felt justified to try it, just like once. And I have a tracker on my phone to see like which one's the best, all of that. I think as you travel more, you get to see more cultures, more societies. You get to see how communities are much more advanced, or how they work differently than we have our communities working in the United States. I would say even more recently, talking to friends and stuff. I had a friend who backpacked around China and, on his own for 40 days. And he was shocked at how advanced of a country it was. Clean, the technology, electronics, driving cars, robots, all of that stuff. Just such an advanced country, especially when you compare it back to where we are in the United States right now, that it's almost tempting to certain people. Like Neel was saying, the news says all of this about China, but when you actually go and when you actually see what they have there, is it better than the United States and like what they have to offer? And those are genuine questions that I've been hearing from people, not only my friends that I talk to here, but as I travel around the world, people are weighing whether or not it's worth it at this point even.
So now we're going to transition from a very foreign topic to an extremely local topic, and that is barbershops. More specifically, how barbershops can serve as more than just a place to get a haircut. In many communities, they serve as sacred spaces where men can share stories and receive advice. For many men, it's one of the few spaces where they feel comfortable opening up to their peers. And as ideas about masculinity have been shifting, do barbershops fit into this new era of comfortable masculinity? I'm going to start off with some numbers. So first, people seek relationships with their barbers. According to YouGov in 2018, 39% of American men say that they always see the same person for a haircut. And a survey by a UK men's mental health charity called the Lions Barber Collective in 2016 found that 78% of UK men made a conscious effort to regularly visit the same barber. Older Americans are more likely to have a steady relationship with their barbers, according to YouGov. Almost half of Americans over 55 say that they always see the same barber. Only a quarter of those aged 18 to 24 said the same. So I'm going to throw this over to Jay and Lee now.
The old guys.
I didn't want to say that. But do you guys notice a difference with your generations compared to like our generations on the way they treat the barber and going to the barber?
I think what's interesting is that we're doing a segment of barbershops, and barbershops are kind of part of American lore, but beauty salons are too for women. So I think there's a very distinct, very parallel course that we could have 4 women on here talking about beauty salons. And I think a lot of these themes would be the same. But what strikes me about this is barbershops have kind of had this transition from the striped pole to places that are almost cool to go to. They were not cool when I was a kid. I didn't want to go to the barber. And they're almost cool now. They've got pool tables and there's kegs that are tapped and all that kind of stuff. And I wonder if that's part of what has made it part of the conversation, because you hear a lot about barbershops. You hear a lot about barbers and cool barbers and facial hair and doing all that kind of stuff, which was not something that coming up I heard about it. Yes, I went to the same barber now. I do, but I didn't when I was young, as in college or in my first job. I didn't go to that. I went wherever, Supercuts was probably.
First of all, I think this is a very interesting topic. I mean, I think if we do 3 topics a day and we've done over 400 of these, gosh, of all the topics, I can't think of a more surprising topic to put on the table. First of all, to have, one gender doing a topic by itself, I think is the first time we've ever done that. So,
well, there was Barbie.
No, of course. That's almost like barber shop. Maybe we'll have Barb Wire next or something. I don't know. But when I was a kid growing up, and this is obviously, way, 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 way back, I did have a special place I went, and I had a guy. His name was Jimmy. And Jimmy cut my hair. And I remember one time when I was young, I thought getting what we now call a layered haircut was kind of cool. So I asked in the prices, I remember, I'm probably was about 10 years old. I said, well, can I have I guess you would call it a shave. And then everybody laughed because the shave obviously had nothing to do with the style of your haircut. And suffice it to say, there would have been absolutely nothing for them to do with a shave because I was 10 years old. But I remember that distinctly. I also remember watching the TV, and there was a guy on TV with another guy. They were doing a quiz show in the afternoon, and it was called, I believe, Whom Do You Trust? And the host was a guy named Johnny Carson, and the other person was Ed McMahon. And this was the show that he did before he did The Late Show.
So, Lee, does the same person cut your hair?
Yes, but what's changed as, my lifestyle has changed and my haircut needs have changed, because I think the less hair you have, the more it has to be coiffed appropriately. So, yes, but what's changed is I no longer have a barber. I have a hairstylist.
Well, of course you do. And you have a publicist and you have... No, I'm just kidding.
That's right. And the hairstylist happens not to be a masculine person, but a lady named Thea. And Thea, in her early years, was a Vidal Sassoon. I'm really going upscale on her. So I've come a long way since Jimmy. And I like when you said the barbershop poll, because I thought for a minute that was a great pun on the data that Neel was talking about. After all, a barbershop poll.
Unintentional, yeah.
Yes. But anyway, so Thea has cut my hair for a long time. And as it's become more sparse, she has been required to be more creative. And I think I've been very pleased with this. I should point out also that because of COVID, we started no longer going to Thea, but we actually have Thea come to us. And then we get a group of people, some of whom work at the Marist Poll, to join in, and we have a kind of like a Thea day.
So the barbershop is, in your case, at your house. Neel and Tommy, do you guys have the same person you go to, the same place?
At school, Neel was my barber.
Wait a second. What?
Yeah, he was like my full-time barber. I'd go there every 2 weeks and he would give me the best haircut ever. I can't find another person that can give me another haircut like that.
So you're going to fly to Indiana when he's in grad school and get your haircut every month or so?
I've been telling him to come to Florida. I want a haircut because whenever I go to my place, it's like I walk out of there and I spent like $50. It's ridiculous. And Neel, I got to pay like $20. I get a better haircut. It's awesome.
Do you tip him?
Of
He
course.
compensates me very well.
Neel, when did you pick up this? I mean, we can't let this go without further investigation.
I think we now understand why he proposed this segment, Lee. This is an advertisement.
So is this a skill that you had picked up a while back?
So during COVID, I started cutting my own hair because I couldn't really go to a barbershop, and I hate when my hair, especially on the sides, gets really long. So I started cutting my own hair, and then once I got to college, people don't have cars in college. They don't want to walk to the barbershop, walk back all, prickly. So I told people I cut hair, and then I started cutting their hair. And at first, I didn't really charge. Partially was because I wasn't very good yet. And it was also partially because I felt like growing up, I never really had that, like Jay said, that sense of community in the barbershop. Like I would go to super cuts and great clips. So like I kind of wanted to create that when I cut people's hair. So I didn't really charge people, and it was always just like a pay as you wish. And that also stems from because when I was finally able to start making my own haircut decisions, like freshman year of high school, my local barbershop charged $20 for a haircut, and now they charge $50. So I didn't want that same thing to happen and to deter people from that sense of community that the barbershop brings. So that's my barber story and how I aim to create that sense of community when I cut people's hair.
The thing about barbers is some of this data that you've discovered in this segment is that men actually feel safe talking about things in a barbershop that they might not talk about elsewhere. Do you create that atmosphere when you're cutting, not to pry, but are the guys you're cutting their hair, is there kind of that vibe that you get in a barbershop? Maybe we should ask Tommy since he's the one who's the customer.
100%. One of the main conversations we would always have is about the pole. We would always talk about the pole because I was a coach at the time, and then I was looking for something to do over the summer, and then we talked about what Neel does at the pole, and then we figured it out. What else do you have to say, Neel?
Yeah, I definitely feel like I can have some deep conversations with people. This is actually a quote from Jennifer Medina from the New York Times. Barbershops may be some of the last places where people who disagree can debate in real messy life. I definitely feel that with myself because I mainly cut my friends or friends of friends, and these are people that I know, but we don't all have the same views. So when they sit down in the chair and I cut their hair, it takes me a little longer than traditional barbers. So they're in my chair for an hour and there's nowhere for them to go. So we can start talking about whatever, start talking about politics or like deep stuff in their life or my life, but they can't run. There's nowhere for them to go. If they get upset halfway through their haircut and they're walking out with some messed up hair. So I definitely feel that I've been able to connect with a lot of different people. And it's nice because in college, everyone's busy, everyone has different schedules, but I knew that all the people that I cut their hair, I would have at least an hour every couple of weeks to sit down with them and just catch up on life.
How many people might be in your clientele here?
I would say most of my teammates from college, so I would say probably 30-ish people. I've made some good money from it too.
I have to say that in the 70 years I've been associated with an education at some level, I've never, ever heard a story like this. And you have kept this from us the entire time that we've known you. First of all, as a student in class, it's a really good thing you didn't mention this because I would have teased you unmercifully for the entire semester. And so now you sort of drop this and head away. Have you ever had one where you go, gosh, I'm really sorry. Can we start again?
Yeah, the thing is, when that happens, there's two things you can do. You can either not say anything and just let them walk out and you don't say anything. Because when people get a haircut, they only see the front view. They can see the sides a little bit, but they can't really see the back on their own. So you just either let it be or you convince them to do something else. A taper is a haircut only on the bottom. And if you mess that up, you can say, I actually think you look better with a full fade. And then you can go higher. And then that's the way you get yourself out of that.
Jay, is there any chance we can ever one time do a repeat segment? Because I think this could just, if we ever needed another segment, we could just, for those of you who missed the barbershop discussion.
Yeah, sure. So I have a question, though, for you, Neel, and really for you, Tommy. This data showed that younger people don't so much have a barber. And I think that makes sense. Younger in life, you're moving around more, you're settling and stuff. You cut your own hair, but are you likely, do you think, as you get more settled, you get a job after grad school, you're living in a place, do you think you're likely to have that joint you go to and develop that relationship?
I think I will. Part of the reason that I started cutting my own hair too is because haircuts have gotten so expensive. Like haircuts at some places have doubled, even tripled. So that's why, in high school and college, I can't really pay $50 every 2 weeks for a haircut. Plus tip, it ends up being like $55, $60. So I started cutting my own hair. But I think as I become more established in my career, hopefully I can pay that 50-something dollars every 2 weeks and engage in a sense of community also.
And Tommy, what are you going to do now that you've lost your barber?
It's been kind of hard because the place I go to, everyone just speaks Spanish. So it's hard to make a relationship with them because I can't really talk to them. But it is a really nice barbershop. They give me coffee. They wash my hair. It's super cool, but way too expensive.
Neel, would you charge less for Jay and I because
we don't have any hair.
Well, especially me, when Jay's been trying to emulate my hairstyle.
Yeah.
As opposed to Tommy, which obviously would take you a lot longer to do. Is there a sliding scale to this?
Well, like I said, it's pay as you wish. So some people give me $5, some people give me $25, $30. However good you feel the haircut is how much I feel like I deserve. Because like I said, that also deters people from not coming because of the price. And for broke college students I feel very necessary.
I now know what I should have gotten you for graduation or a farewell gift or something. A whole set of like different scissors.
That stuff's expensive. So can I ask one last question before we move on to the ultimate point of this entire episode? Are you going to do this? So you're going to grad school at Indiana. You're actually in Indiana as we record this because school starts very shortly. Are you going to do this there?
Well, I would love to, but the problem is I lost my entire client base. They live halfway across the country. So hopefully I can get it started up again once I meet people. I have done one haircut in Indiana. My childhood friend, I cut his hair first day I was here. So hopefully he helps me network and I can get this up and going again.
Because this is a special occasion, the fun fact this time will be led by Neel, who is going to make his last formal appearance on podcasts, although you never know, we can find you when we need you, and we may just do that at some point. But right now, Neel, you get the mantle of the fun fact because this is your
swan song.
Yeah, so this is my last episode. I'm leaving. I'm going to grad school starting next week. So this is the farewell. So I just want to say thank you to everyone at the poll and especially on Poll Hub for everything you guys have done for me over the past 2 years. The poll kind of honestly changed what I want to do in life and broadened my perspectives. I came into college thinking that I wanted to do political journalism, and then after 2 years, kind of fell out of love with politics and journalism. And then working at the poll showed me that there's other jobs surrounding politics and government and things that you can do, especially the different people that I've met in Lee's class, all the different guests that he brought in, showed me that there's other perspectives, and that even influenced my decision to study public policy in grad school and stay not necessarily in the same realm, but in an adjacent realm. And I just want to say thank you to everyone over the past 2 years.
I will say, Neel, just because you did mention the class, that I think that usually you can tell in a classroom, like who's going to come to the fore. And I think initially in class, you stood back a little bit, you sized it up, and then you took it over. I think you, in some ways, did that with the podcast. You came on, is it okay if you appear once as a student producer? You would say, yeah, okay. And now you have introed all 3 segments, which I think is a first. And so we've created a monster here. And his name is Neel. And here he goes to Indiana, and maybe you'll start a rival podcast here.
Hey, now, wait a second. Don't give him any ideas. It'll be about barbershops if he does one.
Well, I just want to say thank you very much, Neel, because it has been an absolute pleasure. I have very much enjoyed your sense of humor, your commitment, and the wonderful topics that you have researched and come up with. Your talent in writing many of these scripts, often even some of the social media that folks have seen promoting different aspects of the podcast. And you have just been a pleasure, really, to work with. And just one thing, though, you are going off to IU, but I want you to remember that Marist University is really your first love and your home. Okay, so you can't do any of this, divided loyalties here. But could you actually tell our audience what you're going to be doing at IU in the graduate program that you are in?
Yeah, so first, I appreciate Lee and Barb, both of you guys saying that. So I'm studying public policy. I don't know a ton about data or coding. I did learn a good amount from the poll, but I don't necessarily know the exact nitty gritty. I was on the media side of the poll for most of it. I did do Gen Next and I got a lot of data exposure, but now I want to dive further into that side of politics and policy. I mean, it does set me up well if I ever wanted to return back to polling. But yeah, I'm excited to get started.
Neel, I could go on and on about your professionalism and your intelligence and just how wonderful you've been at the podcast. But I just want our audience to just what a kind and genuine human being you are as well. You approach everything with such a good nature, and you've helped mentor so many students who have come in after you. And we're so grateful to your leadership and to your approach with working with others and your collaboration with all of us and with your fellow students. You are an example for all here, including all of us older folk and all of the students who will follow you. So thank you so much again. So, Hunter, you, I think, have worked most closely with Neel. What is it about Neel that you're going to miss the most?
I'm really at like a loss for words here. You guys really did say it all well, but I've been texting with Neel often recently and just coming to the reality that he won't be my go-to guy anymore. It's crazy. I don't know how I'm going to live without him, truly. But I think you'll do great in Indiana. I'm excited to see where you're going to go from here, but I am going to miss all of the times when we get to go into the office together, when we're sitting there, when we're texting, when we're meeting in a Zoom and talking about the reality of some of these situations here, of the behind the scenes of working at the poll. So I'm going to miss having my go-to guy, but I'm excited to follow him and see what's next and onward because I know it's going to be great. So congratulations, Neel, and always stay in touch.
Thank you, Hunter and Mary. That's very kind.
So, Tommy, the reason you're here is because of Neel.
Yeah, I would love to thank Neel for everything he's done for me, helping me get this job, all the conversations we had in the barbershop, because we only hung out there because I quit track freshman year and I only got to see him basically at the barbershop or around. So we get to have great conversations and that's what helped me get this job. So thank you, Neel.
And you have a great haircut.
It helps that he has great hair. I don't want to but that does help. So Cassidy, you and Tommy are both kind of new to the podcast, and Neel and Hunter have both been kind of the elder statesmen, and Neel's headed off. Thoughts?
Yes, I have not worked with Neel except for the summer, but he was just the most amazing coworker. It felt like an older brother type of situation where I could just ask Neel whatever I needed and he knew the answer to everything. Like, Neel, what time are we doing this? He knew it. Neel, how do I do this? He knew it. Like, everything. He was so kind. He never made me feel bad for not knowing anything. And he was just amazing with social media. And I never had to doubt any of his work. I knew it was going to be solid every time it went out. And he was just such an awesome addition to Tommy and I this summer.
Thank you, Cassidy.
You must be expanding your head as we're watching you.
No, Lee, this is all well-deserved.
Absolutely.
We are very much going to miss you, Neel. As Hunter said, you'd better keep in touch.
I will. I definitely will.
You can always use this podcast episode as your resume.
That's a great idea.
I don't think most people know that listen to this, that the students kind of do all the work. And that this is fairly recent in the 400 episodes. But over the last 100 episodes or so, this has really transitioned. You are students, but you're professionals. And you create a podcast and we come in and we do talk and we read and we research and we suggest ideas. But Neel and Hunter, but Neel, especially since you're on the way out the door here, what Cassidy said is very true. And I think, again, most people don't understand that you guys manage other students as they come in. So this is like a professional podcast in every way. You guys just happen to be students. I mean, you're paid, but you happen to be students. But in every way, this is a professional podcast that you run, that you guys manage. And you really stepped up in that, especially since you were involved in poll in other aspects. You helped us launch Gen Next. You were the alpha guinea pig to help us launch Gen Next. So you've worn a lot of hats around the poll, as you alluded to. And the final act was really getting into Poll Hub, and you and Hunter co-running the show. So much appreciation from all of us for that. Your future is bright no matter what you choose to do, even if it's cutting hair, I think.
Thank you, Jay. So like you said, I got to do Gen X, so I kind of got a unique opportunity to pretty much know every faculty and staff member at the poll. I just want to say everyone through the past 2 years has been extremely helpful, but the highlight of my time at Marist and at the poll has been Poll Hub and just getting to talk to you guys and learning more as I explore different topics that I'm interested in and the world of polling. So I just want to say thank you guys for everything.
That'll do it for Poll Hub this week. Poll Hub is produced by the Marist Poll at Marist University in Poughkeepsie, New York.
Mary Griffith is our executive producer. Casey Schaff is our production supervisor.
The Poll Hub team includes Neel Viswanathan, Enter Petro,
AJ Cambino, Tommy Rogers, and Cassidy Connors.
If you enjoy Poll Hub, please consider leaving a review.
If you'd like to learn more about polling and survey science, check out the Marist Poll Academy, our free online learning portal accessible from our website.
If you have questions for us, tweet them at us at Marist Poll.
Remember, you can always tell your smart speaker to play Poll Hub, and with any luck, it'll cooperate.
Finally, wherever you listen to Poll Hub, there is a subscribe button.
Click it, and the latest episode will be ready for you in your podcasting app as soon as it's released.
We'll see you next time.